Not every single injury is preventable. There's some acute things that happen, but a lot are. We need to be measuring movement. It's a great tagline I stole from Chris Frankel, sports scientist many in the industry may know, former TRX, now at BeaverFit, but he put it perfectly when he said movement is a vital sign.
This is All Things Fitness and Wellness, uniting industry thought leaders and fitfluencers on the mission to inspire innovation and encourage people to live a life fit and well. On today's episode of the ATFW podcast, I'm joined by Andrew Menter, who opens up about his journey from going through an unsuccessful business exit to rediscovering his passion and bringing Physmodo to life. We dive into how technology is playing a bigger role in fitness businesses, including how movement tracking can help reduce injuries while improving client outcomes. Andrew also shares insights on using technology to boost personal training revenue and keep members engaged, along with opportunities and challenges gym owners face when adopting fitness tech at a larger scale. Before we get to it, be sure to hit like and subscribe. We have new podcast episodes weekly featuring industry thought leaders and influencers. I'm your host, Chrissy Van, and this is ATFW. Well, Andrew, I am so happy to have you on the ATFW podcast. And before we were starting here, we had a brief chat about how much I love people that have had several pivots in their career path. And you really seem like a fine example of that, having experienced time as an athlete. In addition to that, starting off in finance. So tell me a little bit about how, and this is probably going to have a varied story here, did you end up in the fitness technology space? Because that's a little bit of a leap from going from the finance world.
Yeah, well, I ended up where I should have started. I went to law school for, I think, the main reason people go to law school, which is a lack of a creative alternative. And about 30 minutes into my first class, I just said, there's no way in hell I can do this for a living, but I'm here. So, what's 3 years of my life? And so then I decided that I'd get an MBA with it. And so I took that and ended up on Wall Street. And it was I was motivated by money then. So things have changed a little bit. And I didn't, you make a lot of money, you work stupid hours, but I didn't feel like I was adding any value. You can get replaced the next day and no one would care. So then I started a company where I saw an opportunity in college health centers, and that was just not smart because I had no passion for it. And I also didn't know what I was doing because I came out of a finance and legal background. I got my license for law, which I keep up, but I never practiced. It's been helpful though. And so I did this business for about 9 years and should have stopped probably after 18 months, but I was just stubborn.
What exactly was this business? Because that's a big dedication to be like, I wasn't passionate. I was stubborn. I was stuck there. What was it?
Yeah. Well, this is traumatic to talk about. So thanks, Chrissy.
I mean, you can ask Eric Malzone. He referred to my podcasting with him as a therapy session. So tell me more about what was traumatic about this.
We can, you'll save me whatever, $250 an hour, or this is 30 minutes. So I ended up losing absolutely everything, hence the trauma, but it all works out. Yeah. So it was, so college health centers briefly, for the most part, mandate their kids have private health insurance. They just don't accept it.
That's always a fun riddle.
Yeah. It's odd. And so our company put their doctors in networks of insurance companies, and we generated a non-tuition based revenue stream, which one would think is good because students would pay less. And then we developed a software, and it was I think a pretty good business model. It just didn't end up being a good business. And I think, as with most businesses, you need to execute well and have a bit of luck. And I didn't execute very well because I didn't know what I was doing coming out of a banking background. And then we got a few things not go our way. So, it's okay. I learned a lot, and it's been very helpful in subsequent endeavors. And so I moved on to from there to Trigger Point, and I'd met Cassidy Phillips, the founder, at a triathlon and loved the things he was doing and ended up being on the board and then came in as CEO for a little while. And so that's how I got into the fitness space. And it was great.
I'm so curious because I just find that everybody that ends up in this space, and obviously you're very athletic. I mean, it looks like you've done Ironmans. I saw the bio, so it's not like you're somebody that's sitting around and twiddling your thumbs. But to your point, having poured yourself into a business you weren't passionate about, and not to really hammer this home, but I feel like there's so much value in what our quote unquote failures are and being able to pick yourself up on the other side. How integral was fitness for you mentally to get through that traumatic experience? Because we talk about that a lot. And I'm just curious how much you leaned on that as a tool because, you have the successful Wall Street career, you decide to make a pivot. That's not going well. That would take such a hit on the ego. And not to say that we have to be entirely ego driven, but I think to be successful, you have to do a dance with it. And things like that can be so crushing to that part of ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of ego, and I think it was a lot of ego that got me to start the business in the first place because having come out of Wall Street and been successful there and been going through, getting into an Ivy League school, that was easy, and just law school. A lot of things were easy, and you know, and I figured, hey, this will be easy too, and I just got crushed. So, uh, it was a failure. But I was watching a presentation a while ago, and it was from the biomechanics uh, expert at Red Bull, and I'm saying that incorrectly, but a smart dude who had good experience. And he had a quote on his presentation that said, "Seek risk, celebrate failure, stick it out." It was just, it's, I think, probably one of the, we get these motivational quotes all the time, and they're good because it's like, okay, that's a good reminder. But that was a new one, and I like that. But going back to your original question, so the business failure was 2011, and I'd done a couple Ironmans, and a friend of mine was going to Europe to do the Frankfurt one, and so all I did was train and train and train, and I think it's led to my body not being as healthy as I'd want it to be,
Right.
which I think was an impetus in some way for starting Physmodo. But yeah, I just trained and trained, and the race was in July, and it went really well. And I got into Kona, so I did that in October of that year. And I think I don't want to say better ways to deal with tough times in life. I think I could have supplemented it with something else instead of training 25 to 30 hours a week and sacrificing a lot. But there's the honest answer to your question about how I dealt with it.
I enjoy honest answers very much so. And at the end of the day, mentally, you were honing something in yourself, either that or you're a glutton for punishment. And you decided, hey, I'm going to continue building businesses, but I'm going to do something that hits and resonates. So you talked about how you tried to create a business before, but didn't feel the passion. Physmodo, where did the spark ignite? And did you recognize immediately that there was a passion spark there?
Yeah, I had a movement assessment done on me, and it was, I think, 2014. And had and have continued to have a number of issues, which I guess kind of seems hypocritical given that we measure movement, but it doesn't mean my movement's good. I can just track how bad it is. But I had a movement assessment done on me, and I thought it was great. I did a number of movements and was given a score and was given some corrective protocols to try and improve. And it was my first exposure to something like that. The issue was that it took a long time, and therefore I wasn't able to ever repeat it. It's like FMS is phenomenal, functional movement screen. It's been out for a long time, and it kind of made movement a household word. But it does take a fair amount of time. It's subjective because you need another human there, and with another human there, you can't self-assess. And so I like the idea of being able to track my movement and do something about it when I had injuries, because I've had, and it's funny, everything's on the left side. It's, Achilles tear, so surgery on that, uh, slap tear, labral tear on the shoulder, ruptured bicep tendon, left also torn meniscus, which I think everyone has, but this was a bad one on the left side. And now I'm dealing with the TFL hip flexor thing, left side.
Mm.
So, asymmetry is the number two cause of injury, behind previous injury. But I love the movement screen idea, and I just wanted to have a situation where I and others could screen, self-assess, and do it quickly. So you're getting high throughput, and you're getting your movement scores frequently. So you've talked about wearables, and I know you had Marco on from Rook. I love those guys. We're partnering with them, so we're going to be
Amazing.
integrating wearables into our app. There's a lot more on there, and where that could lead to some AI, fun stuff. But
Oh, I saw the
similar to
excitement in your
measuring,
face too, talking about the
yeah,
passion, but your total
yeah,
face demeanor changed when you said that. That's cool.
yeah, it's just
You're
it's
excited
fun.
about whatever this is, so make sure the press release comes over here.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, imagine. So I've worn wearables, and you get your sleep score and HRV and all that stuff. And if you measured that once every whatever few months, the data is not helpful, because there's so many variables. I mean, where you're just on a flight, what's your stress level? Um, there's so much. So you kind of need you need that everyday reading, so that you have a baseline. And yeah, if my HRV is 20% below normal, like, okay, that means something. So that's what we're trying to accomplish on the biomechanics side, because biometrics are there and biomechanics is what's missing. We're trying to fill that gap.
So, talk to me a little bit about where the business is at now, because one of the things that I found fascinating is you're mirroring really exactly where the industry as a whole seems to want to go. And that's intersecting the healthcare component with the gym component, and people that are gym goers and the consumer side seem to be demanding so much more when they walk in the door. They want data, they want information, they want to know exactly how they can train, they want to hack their bodies. So, talk to me a little bit about this technological niche that you're working in and where it's advantageous in building all those bridges that really seem like what the consumer desire is at this point.
Well, what I find interesting is that we look at everything that's measured, and aside from wearables, you go to the doctor and get your cholesterol measured, and blood pressure and whatever else they do. And so we're trying to deal with, circulatory, respiratory, diabetic, kind of all those issues. So the number one healthcare claim is musculoskeletal. There was some survey, it was about 10 years ago, that said what percentage of Americans reported the following medical conditions. And it was 33% respiratory, 28% circulatory. I may have that mixed. It was 13% diabetic, and I think that's gone way up. And then
Yeah,
musculoskeletal was 54%.
I believe it.
I mean, for instance, back pain. I don't know how they get these numbers, so who knows what it means, but there's something like 250 million lost work days due to back pain.
Mm.
Not every single injury is preventable. There's some acute things that happen, but a lot are. And so just like people are measuring some of the things I've mentioned, we need to be measuring movement. So, I mean, movement, it's a great tagline I stole from Chris Frankel, sports scientist many in the industry may know, former TRX, now at BeaverFit, but he put it perfectly when he said movement is a vital sign,
Mhm.
and and it's so true. So as far as so you'll ask a question, then I'll answer something completely different, and I'll
I love
eventually
it.
come back
That's
to it.
the joy of podcasting, because at the end of the day, we have this platform to be able to take the long way round. So, have
Yeah.
at her.
So I should probably get into politics with the voice, but no, I actually end up answering the question. So never mind. And so, yeah, I find there's so many, so trainers, whether they're in person or remote, are giving programming. and they're giving programming based on what the client's goals are, and so forth. I don't know how you prescribe a program, and so here's a 6 or 8 week thing, and 6 or 8 weeks, and you don't divert at all because you're not tracking somebody's movement. So if I'm coming in one day, and because we're measuring on mobility, so shoulder, hip, knee, ankle, all that stuff. If I come in one day and you're coaching me and my hips are really off that day from my baseline and we're doing deadlifts that day, well, you probably shouldn't do deadlifts that day. Or, yeah, we were going to go for 1 rep max today. Let's probably not do that. So again, it's data driving decision making. And I just don't understand how you can't take how you move into account. And maybe people do, but it's like, okay, Chrissy, I want to see you just do a squat. Let me kind of take a look at your movement here. There's nothing objective about that. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help people make decisions that are important, that really need to be there for trainers to do their jobs better. And it's more information to give to clients, which I think helps in their job.
Yeah, without question. I think even the retention piece, the engagement piece, it all plays into it because especially when you think of a gym goer's mindset that's investing in that time with the trainer, we hear it and see it all the time. If they're given that data and that info, all of a sudden that's the conversation they're having with their family at the dinner table. They're so excited to be there. They're so excited to have the appetite for information. It's not necessarily the high level athletes that I think a lot of this type of technology was originally designed for. People are wanting to take in their hands how to move best, how to feel best. I'm curious in regards to integrating with gyms, because obviously we have a lot of health club and gym owners that tune into the podcast. One of the things that I constantly heard last year at different conferences was how the industry itself has always been a little bit slow to adopt technology, a little bit hesitant sometimes if they can't be sure what the ROI will look like. So tell me how the conversations have gone for you bringing Physmodo to life. What are kind of the key points that you like to deliver in regards to how technology like this can help their bottom line?
Yeah, and the KPIs on that aren't that easy because there's a lot of variables. But if we go back to, this is a long time ago, it was end of 2016, and we just started, and we wanted a partner in the gym space, and I knew several people at TRX because having worked at Trigger Point, I knew 4 people I work with at Trigger Point were now at TRX. So that's how I was able to get a meeting with them to try and partner. It was just really good timing. So I talked earlier about you need a little bit of luck. So we were fortunate to have the meeting at that time because URSA was coming up in 3 months, and Randy Hedrick, and he just said, "Hey, this is great. Can you be ready by URSA?" And in retrospect, I don't know why I said yes. I know why I said yes. I just didn't think we'd be able to. We were doing coding, the day before URSA, which
Wow.
is just so bad. That's such bad practice. And then we got to URSA, and it'll take me a while. I'll call it Health and Fitness Association, but I think it'll take me like a long time. Twitter
You
to
aren't
X.
alone.
We still talk. We still call it Twitter, and then we kind of anyway. So
Still
we
fresh. You're off the hook today.
yeah, we went to URSA and we had people go through, and they loved it. We did have internet issues, which caused it to sometimes freeze at the end of a screen, and we learned a
It's
lot. All
always
that's
fun when you're trying to do proof of concept in a
yeah.
high
Well,
stress environment. Lucky
the good
you.
the good things about these conferences is you can typically blame internet for
Yeah.
anything. But now you can do our screen offline. It doesn't really matter. But and then Ryan Damon, who ran sales at the time, decided in his infinite wisdom to do a Facebook Live. And I'm like, dude, it'll probably work, but if this thing freezes, we're in trouble. Anyway, we ended up doing about 1,000 screens, and people really enjoyed it. They brought their friends the next day and they competed. And so we're getting good data, and we're just not, throwing it in your face to make you do it. People are voluntarily doing it. So the partnership with TRX was great. The challenge was because they did the marketing, the sales, the
Oh, amazing.
implementation, the education, the ongoing support, first level support. The challenge we had at that time was we were using the Kinect camera, which is a 3D camera that's in the Xbox, which a lot of people may be familiar with that. And so we had that, and we had a Dell monitor all within this kiosk. So we were hardware, but it was kind of a hardware software play, and that was cumbersome. It wasn't something that people could assess remotely, but we still were very successful. It took a while, to your point, of adoption, because it was pretty new, but we looked at it as an engagement tool. So like an InBody, where it's kind of a retention tool, and it's got good stuff, but you can change your movement in 5 minutes, or you can't really change your body comp. Well, heck, these days now you can change it in like a week, but
Yeah.
still. And so we were able to get in several hundred gyms. We were in 28 countries, and then we were in a good spot. And then the pandemic was not good for us, and that's okay, because we took the opportunity to do our software that it could be used on the iPad, iPhone, Android devices. And so we came out of COVID being able to do that. And that's, now we don't have to deal with this cumbersome, pieces that we had with TRX. So um, ROI, a lot of gyms are seeing that they can generate personal training business out of our software and get a quick return on investment. For those that aren't selling personal training, for instance, Stretch Lab, we're in all locations there, which I believe it's over 500 now, and they're also in Australia and Japan and Mexico. It's a great engagement tool. So depending on the business, we can use it in multiple ways, and we're in plenty of verticals outside fitness as well.
Tell me a little bit about the other verticals that it was applicable to. And did any of them surprise you? Like you come up with something and then all of a sudden did you have any light bulb ahas of like, oh, we should pursue this avenue?
I this business is so fluid. We're working on our new investor deck. It's like, oh wait, that vertical could be really successful. So that was last week.
Amazing. So the light
Yeah,
bulbs are still popping. That's nice.
yeah, but most of it wasn't surprising. We're going into some verticals that have done movement screens for a while, and they have the same challenges I mentioned earlier. So it's multiple assessments. It takes a long time. They can't self-assess. One vertical I don't love at all is college sports, but we are with University of Tennessee, and they reached out to us, and I love the people there. So they have 550 athletes, and they can put our software in their strength training room, and the kids. I'm 51, so anyone below 40 is a kid. So the kids, especially 18 to 21, they can go in there and screen. They can get all athletes in there. They can get all 550 in one day, but they're screening once a week, and then the coaches get all the information. One market. So what's critical is being able to screen remotely
Mhm.
and self-assess. And so that becomes applicable a lot in personal training now, but also youth sports. So
Mhm.
we have a contract with a sports orthopedic hospital in Georgia, and they do outsourcing with athletic training with high schools and travel clubs, and there's 25,000 athletes. So they used a movement screen, but it wasn't practical because of the challenges I mentioned. Well, we're a good answer there. So that's one that we're excited about. We're also in the chiropractic space.
Right.
I think of it this way: any one business that where movement's important and they've used some sort of movement assessment, that's where we fit. And
Yeah.
even we're just signing a distribution agreement with an Australian company, and they do things very differently, but corporate wellness is a big deal there.
Mhm.
And so they're going in and screening, and they haven't been able to do movement, and now they can. And
Yeah.
the employer market should be number one based on, again, I mentioned all these lost work days. I mean, we can really help with back injuries. If you have bad hip mobility or hamstring flexibility is bad or poor core, your back may be fine, but it's not going to be soon. So
Mhm.
that's on the preventive side. And again, coming back to healthcare claims, I don't love that vertical because it's super difficult. Long sales cycle. It takes a while probably to demonstrate your ROI, but yeah, I think there's a lot. We were in the Navy, the Navy SEALs, and I don't like the government vertical because there's such an opportunity there, but that takes too long. And interestingly, some of the bigger, stronger athletes are the ones that move the worst.
I believe that. I think to your point of what you said happened during the Ironman and all of that, we put it your body through so much, especially if you're at that level of athleticism, because I think mentally you end up so tough that you override the signals that your body is telling you quite a bit earlier of like, hey, we should slow down, stop, or move differently. But we decide to mentally override your body saying, hey, alarm bell here. And that's probably when you're getting them. Alarm bells were long gone if you're at that level of
Yeah.
athleticism.
Yeah, and so in the military, I don't know what the tests are now, but it was and may still be something like how fast can you run 2 miles, how many push-ups can you do, sit-ups, etc. And if you're the strongest person, you can you can push yourself and do a lot, but you are so susceptible to injury at that point that it doesn't make sense. And I really don't think it's because these people don't understand how important movement is. There just isn't something that's so quick. I mean, a lot of the military is doing some sort of movement assessment, but again, doing it once every 3 months or 6 months doesn't give you any actionable data,
Yeah, you're
except for
taking
that
what they
day.
need and making it intelligent, so that makes a lot of sense. I'm just curious, and you shared a couple of reasons why, but when you mentioned the college sports, you also said you didn't like that vertical. What was the reasoning? Is that also a time constraint, or I was
So
just curious?
we're gonna get back to my trauma. So I worked
Okay.
in higher education, and that's where I got. Um, yeah, I think a couple things. It's the sales cycle, and it's a very finite market. So I think our software could be most useful maybe out of any market in that market, and that's a different play than personal training, which is let's generate personal training business or let's have engagement and retention. That is truly preventive. You don't need to
Mhm.
sell anything to your you know first string quarterback. I mean,
Of
you
course.
just need to make sure that quarterback doesn't get injured. um, so it's a great market on paper. I just think business wise, and a lot of people go after that in the pro market because it's glamorous and it's nice to say. But
That's
I have
why
a
I
friend.
asked when you said it, when you were kinda like, "Eh," but then also when you were like, "We're gonna unlock my trauma," I was like, "Tell me more," but, oh, you just skimmed over it. We won't dig.
It's okay. I just don't think anyone cares. So I have other things to share that people might care about, and if I may ask the question and answer it myself because I
Yes,
know we
please
have time
do.
restrictions, but um, we mentioned about Ron, who you had on recently, talking about AI, and that's the buzzword of now. And I don't think it's really just a buzzword. This isn't going away, but
Mhm.
ultimately where we want to go, because we're getting a lot of data here, and we're saying, all right, so Chrissy, here's a couple issues you have. Really want to focus on this shoulder program and this whatever else. There's a number of different correctives. I think ultimately we're going to be able to see what works on people. So we become this AI recommendation engine, and so your baseline might be, a 55 5 on your shoulder, mobility on the right side. And we're not diagnosing anything, by the way, we're just giving data. And so if you come in and then you get injured and you get down to a 37 and then something's happened, rotator cuff or whatever, it doesn't really matter. We need to get you back up to a 50. I don't even know what I said, 57.
55.
Okay. Well, I improved you by 2 right away. So, so we need to get you back to your baseline. And so what is going to get you there? What programs and what protocols? And I think at that point, it becomes a recommendation engine. Also, with bringing in the wearable data, you just can look at what's going on with some of these other non-biomechanical issues. That could be interesting. And also, so right now I'm dealing with a TFL deal, and I love dry needling. It
Me
seems to be
too.
most effective for me.
Same.
Yeah,
Hands
it's
down.
it's supposedly illegal in California where I lived. So
Why? Do you happen to now? If not, I'm gonna have to look this up. But I'm like, why?
I don't know, because it's California.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna have that song stuck in my head.
I don't
Tupac
know.
all day. I
I
blame
went to
you.
an acupuncturist and
They do it at my physiotherapist.
oh, well,
Maybe it's a
maybe,
Canadian thing. I don't know. Come on over, California. Vancouver welcomes you.
yeah, well, we won't digress there, but I think you may have a lot of visitors coming your way. So, but I like cupping and sometimes ART, and on our software, you're able to, on the consumer app side, you're able to put, we have a body map of your soreness and injuries if you have any. And then also, adding the ability to say, well, what kind of treatments are you getting? And then your score's changing, your soreness is changing, your injuries are training. And so, not everyone will have dry needling, but I know that based on the treatment I'm getting now, that this TFL is going to get better. My hip mobility is going to get a lot better, and I'll get a return to action. So it's not the same for everybody, but we'll able to have a number of protocols that work. We'll be able to see if you have these certain issues, injuries, etc. Well, that's probably not good if you're playing this sport or that sport. There's just so much that can be done out of the data we're getting that it's not going to happen overnight, because we've pivoted from using this Connect camera to being able to use our assessment on your phone. So we're getting a lot of new data. But I'd say if we had this podcast next year at this time, I'd be telling you what some of those recommendations are.
I will be setting a reminder. Surrey is on it after this conversation. Hey, Surrey, we need the reminder because we will do this again. But I also appreciate that you basically led into exactly what I was going to ask you, because obviously in any business, you're always forward thinking of what's the next thing. And you had already dropped the nugget earlier that the next thing is already in the works. So I guess my follow up to that, because you are going to be branching more into this wearable AI space and integrating that, what is your timeline on potential announcements of potential partnerships? Kind of, sort of. I mean, you have the legal lawyer side of you, so I'm like, what can you tell me in this podcast of what people? Is this going to be another HFA announcement where your internet craps out the day before, or what? Cramming to
That
the
was,
midnight hours? Will you be coding before March 11th?
is that when it is? Is that soon? Oh, wow.
Yep. So he's like, yes, I will be coding
Yes,
before. You heard it here
yeah,
first.
I couldn't tell you the first thing about coding, but we have people that can.
That's
So
that's key.
yeah, I love the partnership with Brooke that we're kicking off now. I don't know how long. I don't know when we're going to unveil that, but hopefully soon. And I like that. The example I like to give is, so when I had a whoop and I went on a long hike in hot weather, I slept really well and got a 97, and HRV was terrific. And my message was, okay, you're in a great condition, and today's a peak day, go crush life. And having dealt with the meniscus issue, my software, the score on our software was down 15 points because, and I knew that would happen, but I wanted to get the hike in anyway. And so all I wanted to do that day was sit on my couch and put on my compression boots and ice and do the things. Bottom line, it was not a peak day for me.
Mhm.
So how do we take that 97 I'm getting for all these other, let's call it biometrics or markers, and my 34 on my movement, and give me, what is my true readiness score for that day? That's not going to be easy, but we need all this data, and we're going to be getting all data, with Rook is integrated with, I think, everybody, and we'll be getting some really cool data. I think it's going to be tough on the UI side to, again, have these smart people figure it out. But I I think being able to look at your true, pardon me, readiness and recovery is critical. And you can't just look at how you move, and you can't just look at how you sleep.
Absolutely. Well, and you are on it. So we look forward to seeing this unveil. You kind of, well, not kind of, you did start this conversation off sharing a story where you weren't in the right place. You kind of knew it. You lacked passion. You gave it everything, which I think is super admirable. Probably learned 9 million lessons along the way. Ask yourself, why the fuck am I still doing this? Probably 80 million times more. But I'm curious, with where you're at in this Physmodo journey, what is exciting you most as you move forward through this? Because it sounds like the passion's there. So what's exciting you most as you look ahead?
Probably getting the company acquired in a couple of years and going to
I was going to
culinary
say the
school.
exit.
Yeah. I want to, like, my cooking is getting super boring, and I don't really know how to plate food very well. And so I really want to learn that. So, but kind of going back to my first job, where in investment banking, where if I got fired, then I'd be replaced the next day and it wouldn't matter. I think what we're doing now really matters. And it's exciting to be able to generate some of these insights on the, and having that AI recommendation, and seeing what difference that makes. I know from some of the employers that I said that's not a big market for us, but we are starting in Australia, and I am so interested to see, it'll probably take a year, the healthcare claims reduction, the movement improvement, the less lost working days due to back and other injuries. I mean, that's really cool, and that's gonna help a lot of people. And if I get, well, I guess I could get fired. The board could get super pissed. But if I left tomorrow, I mean, the company would still survive, but it would matter. So I matter, at least in terms of what we're doing now. And I think that's great. And then, culinary school and like Wim Hof weekends or stuff like that. So
Excellent. So this means we have 3 podcasts to do together, just so that you know, Andrew. So we're meeting this time next year to talk about all the data. Meeting a few years, maybe less after that, to talk about negotiating an exit and acquisition journey. And then we'll meet again because I love to eat. So once you've learned how to plate all the food, that'll be podcast number 3, putting it together. But I so appreciate you carving the time, Andrew, and I'll leave you with this. The entire time when you're talking about injuries and knowing what's happening in your body, I've been a huge weightlifter for way too many years and a woman that never, ever stretched. So you want to know, my biggest injury was a full tear of my proximal hamstring. Any guesses how I did it?
well, I mentioned deadlift earlier, doing a 1 rep max. So maybe that's the coincidence. No, I have no idea.
No, karaoke. No
Oh,
word
that
of
was
a
my
lie.
second guess. You should have let me guess a second time.
Karaoke is how I did it.
Wow.
But
Can you
if I had
explain?
known what was going on in my body, maybe I would have realized I'm not a cheerleader anymore and I cannot do the jump splits. But c'est la vie, I had to learn
Oh,
that the
okay. So
hard
that's
way.
what happened there. I said we can probably prevent some injuries. I don't think we could have done much on that one.
No,
Um,
no.
but it's
It
funny.
probably would have made me more intelligent going into that situation, though.
Probably, you said it, not me, but no, I actually went and did a rec soccer league that my friend invited me to because I needed to make friends. And I was just really scared that I'd tear my hamstring. So I got there super early and was warming up. And then 5 minutes in, I blew out my Achilles. So,
It's always
I protected my hamstring,
you
but I
did.
think I would have preferred that injury.
It's hard to say. It's hard to either way. Thank goodness for dry needling. This
Yeah.
is like
How
an
long were,
unofficial, this has been an unofficial podcast to just advertise dry needling. California,
it's
are you listening?
dry needling on the hamstring? I got that yesterday. It's a little bit painful. The rest, you
It's
don't
not for the
feel the
faint at
needles.
heart.
If you get an adductor issue, I did that once. That was the most painful dry needling, and it was cured instantly. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
I know it is wild. I'm a huge fan, but Andrew, I really enjoyed the conversation today, and I want to give you a huge shout out because I know you pivoted to join me kind of last minute, and I know that you have all this. You have to learn coding before HFA, so good luck.
I don't have to learn. No, speaking of learning from mistakes, we don't do that anymore. We're with what we have today is what's going to URSA. So that'll be fun.
Brilliant. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you there, and thank you so much for joining me on ATFW.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
You've just listened to the All Things Fitness and Wellness podcast, hosted by Chrissy Van. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. We have new podcast episodes weekly featuring industry insiders and influencers. Together, we're on a mission for everyone to live a life fit and well.